Welcome to the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Series podcast. Each week, we'll learn from leaders who are driving change and making an impact. Now here's your host, the CEO of the Youngstown Publishing Company, Jeff Leo Herrmann.
Today on the podcast, I have the extra special pleasure of introducing Mr. Bob Messaros. Bob is the president and CEO of Commercial Metal Forming, and we had a really fascinating conversation. We delved into areas I really didn't think we'd get into. So to find out, please listen to the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Series podcast. Thank you for your time and attention, and here's Bob.
I got what it takes. I am a warrior.
So Bob, thanks for joining us today on the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Series podcast.
Good morning.
Glad you're here today. We're just going to jump right in, right? We've done a little warm up.
Yep.
But I really want to know, when you were a child, what did you aspire to do? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I think my childhood was really similar to a lot of kids in that generation. But as I thought about this, because this could be a really deep question, and I didn't want to lay on someone's couch and try and figure it out. There was a common theme in everything. Everything I thought about that I wanted to be, there was this common theme: help people. And so, it was probably fairly typical of the late 50s, early 60s. First was Zorro.
Right.
And, that stopped when my mom grabbed my sword after using it inappropriately on her and snapped my sword. So Zorro doesn't have a sword anymore, off I go. Then the Lone Ranger, and that lasted till my kid brother wouldn't be Tano anymore. But at the end of the day, I even for quite a few years, ironically, explored the priesthood. Was enrolled to go to Borromeo Seminary in Cleveland. And, thought that maybe that was going to be my path. But again, a theme of helping people. I think that came more from the European environment I grew up in. Being the oldest, you give your first son to the church. So there was a heavily influence of my mother pushing me with, giving me every periodical of missionary priests that existed. I was forced to read all these. But at the end of the day, in all seriousness, what it boiled down to was I wanted to be my dad.
And what did he do?
He was a football coach. He was a teacher. Then he got into business. We grew up in my dad's old neighborhood in Elyria, Ohio. Hungarian, very heavily ethnic, mixed communities, very diverse. Taught you to respect differences in people, and everybody in the community. I wouldn't say it was hero worship, but they just admired my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because he believed that it didn't take a whole lot to be kind.
Right.
So that, at the end of the day.
Well, I want to ask a question about diversity, because by definition, America's a melting pot.
Absolutely.
And we've thrived on diversity for our existence. Do you think today's environment, we've gotten worse at? We've always been great with diversity, right? Historically.
I think we have. I think where we might have lost our way is that instead of teaching kids respect, and I don't know when it started, but I think the lesson that was trying to be taught is you had to make up for past sins. And that doesn't help anybody. Because you cannot make that up.
Yeah, right.
There was mutual respect before. There was all this talk, not to get off on that, but there was this, the nuclear family. Well, that was never even questioned.
Right.
Back in the 50s and the 60s and in the 70s. And then, I participated in and went through, the crazy 70s in college. But I think, yes, you're exactly right. That diversity has always been there. And to me, it's not, I don't want to minimize it, but if we start with respect, not someone's agenda, not someone's group's priorities, but respect. that grows trust. That grows the ability to have kindness.
Right.
And that's what we try to emulate every day. I mean, that's the fundamentals of our culture and how we're wired. And our company, the theme is leaders, leadership. We look for leadership.
Everyone's a leader. Your career in football, right? So you were saying you pursued a career in coaching.
Right.
Following,
yeah,
you
10
wanted
years,
to be your dad, following your dad's
10 years
footsteps.
at Miami of Ohio.
Wow. And so what was that program built upon? Was that same focus on respect and helping the kids?
Absolutely. I mean, that's back then, you weren't making any money. I mean, today's ridiculous.
Right.
But you literally weren't. Why'd you do it? Well, you wanted to help someone. You wanted to pay forward. I mean, all these things sound trite, but they're true. You wanted to pay forward. You wanted to give a kid a chance that you were given. You wanted to thank the person that did it for you by extending that arm to somebody else. And all those deep values, trust, respect, work ethic, we're going to give you an opportunity, but we're not going to give you anything. We're going to give you an opportunity. It's up to you, Jeff. If I was sitting in your home with your parents and your dad would say to me, so-and-so said he's going to play as a sophomore, I would say, well, then I think you should go there. Because the only thing we're going to do is we're going to give you an opportunity.
Right. You have to earn it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's some of the things where we've lost our way. And my dad just oozed to that. God bless him. He and it wasn't an easy childhood by no means, but I was the oldest, so there were different expectations.
How many brothers and sisters?
I got 2 other brothers and a sister. So
Okay.
my job was to take care of them.
Was there someone you looked up to as a child? Absolutely, your father. Or other influences in your life, perhaps?
Well, my faith.
Right.
That's always been, fortunately, and we all come and go. We go through those stages, but it's been always there. It's always been within reach. So that grounded me, has continued to ground me. Really, my dad. I mean, I've had these talks with folks before, and oh, come on, didn't you want to be this pro baseball player, or this pro football player, or this politician, or no. I mean, I think about it often because he's gone, and I always said to myself, if I could be half as good as he was, I'm going to be pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm. And he probably wanted you to be twice as good as he was, right?
That's why the beatings existed. At least that's what he always said.
Right.
He said, I wanted you to be better than me. So I'm very fortunate to have that experience. A lot of kids don't even have that experience today.
Did you have a favorite leader? Do you have a favorite leader today? So, you...
Absolutely.
I'm sure your career in coaching taught you a lot, right? And then how you transitioned into business. What kind of motivated you to make the jump from coaching into business? What was that path like?
Well, can remember it like it was yesterday. Can remember where I was at. I was recruiting on the far east side of Columbus. Kid that I recruited for 2 years. He made his decision from 5 to 2. Who is it going to be? Miami or Ohio State? And to be able to be in the game with that kind of kid, who ended up being all-conference captain, all-pro, and I stay in touch with him still. And Jeff Uhlenhake was his name. And 10 o'clock at night, called my wife. Of course, no cell phones. This is 1983, 84. And snowing. And said, hey, I'm on the far east side of Columbus. I'm heading home to Oxford. She says, great. I said, well, how was your day? She's great. She says, we got back about 9 o'clock for Mary Ann's Christmas pageant. Mary Ann was in the 5th grade. Where was I?
Recruiting, working.
Yeah. So that, threw me into, for about a 2-year, really soul searching. Mm-hmm. And am I being hypocritical? Am I sitting in your living room talking to your son about how We're going to help your son grow as an individual first, as a student second at Miami, and then as an athlete third. And that the choice he's going to make for the next 4 years is going to determine him for the next 40. Who are you fooling? So fortunately, I was blessed that Worthington Industries believed in hiring coaches and athletes because of some very common high-value things: work ethic, teamwork, and if you get knocked down, you're going to get yourself back up.
Right.
So, your original question about who might I look at from a leader standpoint, I would say I would answer it this way: there's a lot of people I admire that I learn from, but the person that is ultimate, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, is our Lord. Why? It's really simple. No one's loved greater than He has. And after that, there's not a whole lot you need to say, because that encompasses everything. So, Pope Paul II, phenomenal individual, helped all humanity. Obviously with football, Belichick, Saban, I know Nick, unrivaled excellence. They do not accept average. And then from a historical perspective, I'm a Civil War nut, love Lincoln. I've watched, that Lincoln movie probably 20 times, read Team of Rivals, which is my favorite book, probably 5-6 times. And the reason for it is that you see someone in their toughest moments dig down, and true leadership comes to the forefront. Lincoln dealt with things that we can't even fathom.
Right.
And to me, they're great lessons learned. I'm not embarrassed to say I've never read a business book. I have no aspiration to read a business book. I want to be able to look at things that are real life examples and say, how can I apply that to myself? How can we apply that to make a difference in the lives of the people of our company?
Mm-hmm. I have to circle back to something you said, because I ended up asking you a couple questions at once.
That's okay.
So I'm working on my interviewing skills.
That's okay.
But this is a question, and this is a learning, and I've had to deal with the same thing for the dads out there, or the mom, right?
Yeah.
Parents that work.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get wrapped up in your career.
It is.
Externally thinking, I'm doing this for my family.
Right.
But there's a point when you can tell yourself that and convince yourself of that. I'm never home. I'm gone Monday through Thursday night or Friday, but I'm doing it for the family, and it's good for them, and the money and the more, everything's covered. But then there comes a point where it actually becomes.
You convince yourself.
Yeah, and it's not good or it's could be better. You know what I mean?
Sure.
These are, what do you have? What are your thoughts?
Well, you're right on. It is a great internal conflict. I think the first step is what happened to me. I became aware. Mm-hmm. And we got married in college. My last year coaching, we had 5 kids, and then we had a 6th 2 years later. So a really crazy, great household. And so when the awareness comes with the individual, then you have the choice. Leadership is a choice. Everybody has the opportunity to lead if they choose. And we tell that to people every day at Commercial Metal Forming. And when we first started saying that 10 years ago, they look at you like, well, no, you got a title. No, leadership doesn't mean anything about a title. Some of your greatest examples of leadership are from people that no one would even know about.
Right, stepping up.
Yeah, those are the people that
take action.
I shouldn't be sitting here. You talk to some of those people on a shop floor like that. And they probably wouldn't even call it that. It's just the way they're wired. So going back to the question on moms and dads, I think it's tougher today than ever because of external influences and things being so fast. But the one thing, first of all, my wife, we dated all through high school, found a Hungarian Catholic that was really good looking and wanted to learn how to cook. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't get any better than that. That's part of the strength of being able to manage through things is that unselfishness. Her level of unselfishness can't be measured of what, because she's a mom and now a grandma. But I think what you do is when you're aware, then you can manage. And so like examples of that, I've done this crazy commuting a lot in my life. I was a president of a company up in Detroit for Worthington. I had 2 kids in high school and 3 hours and 45 minutes from the plant. And I would leave at 3:45 to go drive back home, see a volleyball game, see a basketball game, get home at 11, get up at 3 in the morning, and be back in the office the next day. You know, people used to say, man, you're stupid. What the hell are you doing? Well, I don't ever remember my dad missing anything. And what I've always vowed to our kids, man, unless I'm in another country, I will move heaven and earth to see you do whatever you're doing. Because that's leadership at the end of the day is about the example you set.
Right.
You
At
can
home,
read all
at
these
work,
books.
in your community.
Exactly.
in church.
It's about the example you set. And people see whether or not that's sincere, whether or not you're doing that when no one's looking.
They can test it, right.
It's
observed. It's easy
tangible.
to observe, really, right? I mean,
Very much. It's tangible. And you know, you read those books, and there's a lot of great guys out there. Simon Sinek's a great optimist. I think he's brilliant. I love listening to his stuff. But at the end of the day, the theme always is coming back to, he points to real life examples. It's not theoretical. It's practical. It's applicable. It's tangible. And we made a conscious decision in commercial because we do a lot of workshops, and we create the workshop internally, and they're very interactive. And we go away for a day. And we did one a couple years ago we posed the question. I said, what do we want? Do we want leaders or do we want leadership? And you know, you could say, well, you're just playing semantics. Well, no, one's a noun, one's a verb in reality.
Mm-hmm. Leaders means a few, leadership means everyone.
Well,
right?
And it's tangible.
Right.
You know, you could say that this person's called a leader because, well, there's tangible things they do. So do you talk about what this individual did, or do you point to real life situations internally that are examples of leadership? So what our management team does is they have a journal. It's private. Because just like the question you asked me about the family,
mm-hmm.
awareness. So at the end of the day at the workshop that we ran, I said, how aware are we? What's 1 to 10? What's the level of leadership? We talk about culture. There's examples we can go through, but how aware as a leadership group are we? So I handed out all of them small journals. I said, this is your journal. I'm never going to overstep my bounds and ask to see it, read it, whatever you share, you share. But to be aware, to stop and breathe during the day and go, Jeff just did
It's
this.
the reflection time, and it's documenting it, right? And then the impact.
Yeah,
right?
we wanted to give them a vehicle, the journal. We wanted to give them a vehicle to help stimulate, because we could talk about it and then they go back and, you know, for a couple of days they go, oh, there it is, you know. But now you give them a vehicle that's sitting there. It's a choice. You can use it or not, Jeff. It's up to you. And then they see, this person did this, this person did this. And it's private to them. And then what do you do after that? Then you go acknowledge it. Because just seeing it and documenting it isn't enough. Now you go acknowledge. Did you know what you did is what we talk about when we say leadership, when we talk about our culture. So, you know, it works for us.
So awareness, observation, and then reinforcement.
Right.
Sounds like the progression.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you don't see it through, how are you going to help it thrive? you know, you tell someone, whether it's our company, at your church, at your golf club, hey, it's really nice of you to help that kid carry those golf clubs out to the car because he didn't have an extra guy to help carry the clubs. You didn't have to do that. And our big theme is the little things make the difference. It's, you know, I mean, we bounce back and forth, and I think we do an exceptional job from a strategic standpoint. But I will tell you, we are constantly bouncing back to the little things.
Mm-hmm. Is that what's encouraged? So your training and your development programs at Commercial Metal Forming, how often do you have those training and development programs, and do they hit that consistent theme? We
build on where all this started was when when the team that I brought in 10 years ago, we did it under what's called talent management. Don't you find it interesting that businesses for hundreds of years have had reviews of their employees? And I'd venture to say the purpose of the review was to tell you what you don't do well and what you need to work on. Well, that sucks. Steve, do you think that sucks?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
You know, so is there a better way? Is there a different way? So I stumbled on this back in the mid-90s, and we engage and people take tests on what their strengths are.
Mm-hmm.
So
strengths finders? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got 5 strengths, you got 4 domains, and we build our employee development from there. So one of the workshops we do is, where do your strengths exist? And it's not sitting, and it's painful because we force people to think. Because I'm very content to sit there and say, here's the question, and sit down. And everybody's spread out, and they got their big boards up, and it's like, you know, there'll be 2 people sitting there we only do 10, groups of 10. And we're 40 minutes into this thing, and they're sitting there. So we'll just wait. You know, tomorrow will be here.
Right, the patience is
you
worth
have
it,
to
right?
you have to allow people to get comfortable. So there's got to be a high level of trust. But then they're peeling themselves off because they're sharing. I will tell you, we probably have had on the Strength Finders workshops 30 over time, you know, because we get all 3 facilities. There is not a workshop we didn't have that someone didn't break down emotionally when they presented. I mean, when you're willing to put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
you create a different environment.
Right. It creates
and that's
a
the same
space.
going back to sports. How many
Right.
guys hug each other in a locker room and say, I love you, you know, and are crying at the win and crying at the loss, or they're crushed because they just blew their knee out, and you got all his buddies up at the hospital room saying it's going to be okay. That same emotional attachment that we have in sports, that fans have in sports, that throw beer bottles at TVs, there's an emotional attachment. We want that emotional attachment. And I think it doesn't exist at every spot, but it grows. And you have to be patient and let it keep growing and reinforce it. And like you clearly articulated, you have to acknowledge and reinforce, acknowledge and reinforce. And you keep doing that, then it's live. We were redoing our website, and I put a very sarcastic comment on there. And it hasn't hit, because we're in the debate of Bob's Hungarian sarcasm's not appropriate. And under mission and vision, we don't have a mission and vision statement. And I said, companies put mission and vision statements right here on their website because they can't remember it. So ours is all about culture, a culture of helping everybody we touch be successful. Taking that human responsibility, it goes full circle. When you asked earlier about, you know, diversity, what's changed? Respect. Respect. So sorry, I didn't mean to get off. You get me rolling on this. I mean, you got to be passionate about this stuff.
Right.
You know, and it's not, we don't hand out books to read and say, you know, go, hey, self-help. We have a saying, we get down in the mud and you get mud between your toes and in your ears, and it's okay.
Right. Well, you create an environment, create a space where people can share, and if it takes a minute or 10 hours,
I don't care.
There is a breakthrough, right? And that breakthrough carries forward.
Right.
And it sustains the way people treat each other forever.
Well, when we first started, it was really interesting because any of the 3 facilities, people knew who was going. And then the only thing I asked them is that you're sworn to secrecy. What happens here stays here until everybody experiences it. And so, you know, you'd have a group go back. Hey, what happened? You know, what crazy thing did he do today? You know, and people were really good. They said, if I told you, it would be unfair to you. You have to experience it. So they come in with that. You got that piano string pulled just the way you want it. There's a little bit of tension there, which is good because that's healthy. You know, your adrenaline's going, your heartbeat, respiration rate's up. What's going to happen? And then they just dive in.
Right.
And it's magnificent. We're blessed. We're blessed that we can do these kind of things, and that our people are willing to meet us more than halfway and accept. Different can look like something I've never thought of before, and it works.
That's great. So I want to transition. These are all great learnings and great outcomes in the way in which you approach leadership. I want to focus on mistakes for a little bit.
Oh, man.
Because they're learning opportunities. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors.
The Brain Gain is a collaborative effort, and we'd like to thank the headlining members of the coalition, including Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Moransky Companies, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. Also included are Farmers Bank Group, Youngstown State University, Eastern Gateway Community College, the DeBartolo Corporation, Cortland Bank, MS Consultants, and 898 Marketing.
So we're back here with Bob. And Bob, we teed up this notion of learning by mistake. So have you learned by mistakes?
Every day. I am the king mistake maker, you know, and that's what it should be. And we encourage people, it's okay to fail. As long as you learn from it, you know why something happened, and you have thought about a course directionally of how are you going to change that behavior, or change what you did, or change a process. You know, relative to leadership, I wouldn't say there's one thing that I just crashed and burned. I think, and it's an ongoing frustration. I will own it, I'll live up to it, and I can't necessarily get over it. I have no tolerance for people that just want to be average. Because a human being is then wasting their God-given potential. You know, they're willing to put limits on themselves. They reach a plateau. We were talking about this in a group last night, in fact. You know, that we're fine with this incremental trend. But then how do we help them make a little bigger blip? And it's okay to level off from there. But my tolerance for average really brings bad Bob up. Because I'm not afraid to challenge, and one thing in our organization, we tell people when they come in here, listen, this isn't a company for everybody. We have expectations, we're going to challenge you because our responsibility is to help you be the best you can be. And sometimes that's painful.
And the challenge is to challenge the individual to make progress.
Right, within their context of strengths that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
When we do the talent management, you're not great at all 5. So when we sit down with someone, we say, listen, you know, there's not evidence of this. Pick one. Responsibility. There's not evidence of this. You're really competitive. You're not achieving because it's not aligned with responsibility. You know, you're really good at self-assurance because you are confident in yourself, but you're not executing. So we try to not make it an opinion, but where we can say, goes back to the journal, you can pull from that, we can real life examples. You know, the scale of 1 to 7. You know, hey, what am I? Well, you're a 4. Well, I think I'm a 4.5. You know, it's like, I don't know how businesses survived all those years doing things that way. Maybe they had different purposes too. But the biggest mistake I make, by far, is that I got to reel myself in when I see average.
Does bad Bob, do you explode, or is it a
Well, I
increase
haven't. I guess they call it the coaching voice comes out. You know, and there's a difference in that. The more upset I get, I talk slower. So, you know, there's some pronounced things I'm trying to give people, but I would say the mistakes in my 40s, even coaching, you know, because those are the days, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, I mean, I love Bo. You grab a kid's face mask, you crawl in his helmet. That's what we used to say. I'm going to crawl in your helmet. And so those things I'm not necessarily proud of. They were effective. But, you know, you have to stay current. This is a different generation. I mean, I got people working for me that are younger than my kids. My kids are 45 to 33, and we got, you know, kids. I love them. I call them kids, and I tell them day one, I'm going to call you a kid, because it's an endearing compliment to you. And I said, I want to learn from you. But by the same token, you need to understand this is the way we are wired. It's not about Bob. We have created a group of people that are aligned, values and principles, and are completely unselfish.
How long did it take you to mold that group and to get that group together? You know, piecing different strengths, right? Strength finders, it's a puzzle, right? You lay different pieces of the puzzle together to get the full picture.
Right. I mean, the first thing I did day one was after the first day being here, the next day was the staff meeting with the folks from the other facilities too. And I walked into the staff meeting and I handed out 14 Strength Finders books. I says, go home, take this tonight, print out the results. Let's come in tomorrow morning, we'll talk about it. I said, that's it. You know, and it's like, well, what are you going to do to turn this company around? You know, well, you know, that'll come in due time. I have to learn first about where we're at and what we need. Because if I don't, I just have an opinion. Opinions don't count.
Right.
So I'm a very fact-based guy, you know, very tangible, results-oriented, measure things. So I would say it never stops, Jeff. That development of people never stops. We're not there. People get there at different paces, and as those people got it, then you use them as a resource saying, hey, listen, Jeff, go over here, can you spend some time with Mary? Because there's a block. And you know, go to lunch once a week, just talk. You know, not about business, but about what all this does this mean? Why are we doing this? And so as people got it, they become advocates, if you will. They are able to demonstrate, since the theme's leadership, they're able to demonstrate the leadership since the awareness is now there and they can execute, and it's demonstrated that they can then help influence others. And then some people you just got to pull through the knothole. You know, it's painful. So, and then other people you lose. I mean, it's not good or bad.
It's just about a fit. It's an alignment, right? Sometimes it's just it's not a judgment. It's just you're out of alignment.
Yeah, you're not a bad person. You know, you're not going to church. Whatever you want to say. You know, your mom loved you. No, your mom didn't hate you. You know, that kind of
Yeah.
crap. It's not a fit. And it doesn't make us better than them or them better than us. But all we know is the way we go about it within the confines of our organization is uncompromising because it's grounded in values and principles. And then after that, it's pretty much, you know, a free-for-all,
Right.
if you will. Everybody's got input, but we got to be aligned in values and principles. And you know.
Right. It's once there's alignment, and the creativity
Oh, it just
is
flows.
unlimited, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it just, right.
'cause there's trust
Get
and-
out of their way, yeah.
right.
Yeah, trust is, you know, it's okay to fail. How are you going to get better?
Right.
You know, if you don't miss that block, if you don't throw that interception, you know, if you don't miss that layup, how are you going to get any better? Because those are the deepest learnings.
Right. So speaking of getting better, I want to transition to the state of the Mahoning and Shenango Valleys. So here, this region,
Right.
the broader Youngstown market, you've been around, right?
Yep,
You've
10
worked
years. Yep.
in many, Columbus,
Yep.
Oxford, Detroit, I heard.
Yep.
You've traveled the world, right? You
Yep,
went
China.
to China
Yeah,
many,
7
many
years.
times.
Yep.
How would you, what are your thoughts on the current state of the Mahoning Valley and our potential to continue our transformation? Like, what are there certain ingredients we have we're not leveraging? Are there things we're missing? What do you think about that?
I would make a couple comments. I think the valley's heading in the right direction. There's great points of success that you can look at and leadership you can talk about. Selfishly, I'm going to bring up one, but it's not even commercial metal forming. So there's Juggerbot.
Dan and Zach.
Well, guess where Zach cut his teeth? Commercial metal forming.
Right. Welding?
He was welding part-time. We were putting in some new equipment. He was going to night school. We started talking to him. We brought him in as an intern for a year and a half. Made a commitment. He came in, worked for us for a couple years, and then I pulled him out of the engineering group and said, "What do you know about innovation?" You know, so I know. You know, I says, "I want you to forget everything you know about innovation, because I want you to help me drive innovation into this company. And the reason I told you to forget everything you know is you don't know whether or not it's appropriate for commercial metal forming. Great ideas, you know, that's where I think a lot of people fail, is they go, well, they did it this way. It might not be appropriate. Great idea, make it appropriate. So what we did was, for probably 5 months, we broke down innovation into what we thought was appropriate and then started having workshops to get comments from the mass. So he was our first innovation manager. And then he came to me, and you know, the rest is history with Juggerbot. And he was just on the news the other morning with the Tour de France thing they did. So, so we feel like we're helping. Hate to see the kid leave, but man, who would hold him back? You know, who would hold him back? I mean, I remember when he came to me, he said, "Hey, listen, you know, man, this is getting tough. I'm working till 1 a.m. down there. I'm putting in, you know, 10 hours here." I said, "How's your wife?" He said, "Well, you know, tough. Got to make a choice. You know, but I don't want to leave." You got to make a choice. It's a good thing. And so, you know, we feel from afar, there's one of our boys.
Right.
You know, because you don't got to stay here to thrive. We give you enough to let you go and thrive on your own. So that's an example to point to relative to the valley, the question. I go off on tangents, my apologies. I think we're heading in a great direction. I guess, I think I'm appreciative, I'm humbled that I get to do this with you. But there's everyday people that have great stories to tell. Go back to what I said about the journal. See it, acknowledge it, help reinforce it. you know, there's got to be great stories out there. The mom, when I go past Ursuline High School, there used to be a daycare right there as you cross, and 6 in the morning she's out there with her 3 kids, single mom, waiting for the daycare to open up, and then she's going to work. You know, one of the things I think sometimes that slows down progress is we think it's always up here, big picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's always what's the grand story? What's the golden calf that we're looking to build? And that doesn't necessarily create a passion and a movement. I mean, a movement down here of people that have great stories to tell, that have overcome unbelievable obstacles, that exemplify leadership, specific to leadership, that exemplify leadership. And, you know, I'm no better than anybody else, but I can tell you this, you know, I make it a point. I'm in the grocery store. I mean, you and Steve see this happen all the time. You're walking down the bread aisle. There's 2 loaves of bread on the floor someone knocked off.
Pick them up.
And you see some six-year-old kid.
Kicking them.
No, picking them up and putting them
Oh,
down.
okay, yeah, you're right.
Get, and you know, I get away with it because I'm an old grumpy-looking guy with a funny mustache, so I'm not a threat.
Right.
But you know, I get down on one knee and I go, "That's leadership." I tell people that. That's a hell of a job.
So the word leadership, literally, you used leadership.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yes.
The 6-year-old at the
because
grocery store reinforcing.
Yes.
Thank you for picking that up.
Yeah.
Thank you for noticing
Right.
that that's valuable merchandise to someone
Right.
in this store, and we just don't want to be wasteful.
And you're setting an example
Right.
for that 22-year-old kid with beats on and a nose ring that almost stepped on it and didn't bother to pick it up. It's setting an example. Yes, I
If
used
he
to
can
work.
do it, you could do it too.
Why aren't you doing it?
Right.
You know, and so yeah, because those are tangible examples. Instead of tapping in my head saying, "Oh, that's a nice boy," it's deeper than that. So you know, because it's in all of us, whoever we are. Leadership is in all of us. Go back to what I said earlier. It is a choice whether or not we're going to nurture it, let it grow, and then let everybody else catch it. Because that's what we want.
You're right. If someone's not part of a great organization like Commercial Metal Forming, how does the average person find their inner leadership opportunity?
Well, and what I'm suggesting is how can we,
Encourage
in
it.
this, see it,
Right.
and then do something, you know, put it in the media, hey, you know, here was Mary at the laundromat, and she folded the clothes for this 80-year-old widow. And maybe I get accused of looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. But I'm going to keep dreaming.
Right. You have to.
And if we don't keep dreaming, we might as well roll up the tent because it's over. And we want our people to dream. And what can you dream about? You can dream about some great things that are tangible. But you need to pay a price. You need to make that choice and participate in whatever way you can.
So to close up, do you have any inspirational quote or any quotes, any favorite quotes or things you look to on a consistent basis?
Well, I read a lot. You know, I referenced it earlier. So, you know, I'm a big reader in history, religious history. From a quote standpoint, I've had this since 1977, and it was my first year coaching, and we came off a really rough year, which was an anomaly at Miami, and we gave the kids a coin, and I've over the years found other ones that were like it and given them to my kids when they were tough times in their life, giving them to people. I was looking, I don't have one in my wallet. I thought, that'd be good. That's, visuals, those are always good.
Right.
But yeah, little things make a difference.
Little things make a difference.
That's, to me, you know, I could try to memorize Simon Sinek. He's got great quotes, or somebody else, or Teddy Roosevelt of the Panama Canal with those poor souls, that neither know victory nor defeat. But the thing that's been really, really constant, besides my faith, that I look to when I feel like I need to be get back in the lane. It's the focus on, it's the little things that make a difference.
It's the little things. So we're going to do something new here on the podcast. You're the first one.
Oh, Lord.
So here we go. Do you want to issue a challenge to our community, to our listeners out there? What can we do? Do you want to challenge them? We're here to make progress. We're here to grow and evolve. What challenge would you offer, not demand, but offer, to get people to...
You have an opportunity to make a choice. Can you consciously think about recognizing leadership in the valley, in something, an action that somebody does, and then email it to Jeff? And, maybe we could put this on LinkedIn, maybe you could put it in the paper, who knows? What was the act? One of our folks, when we did the leadership workshop, said, simple act of kindness. It's another way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would challenge, how can we all become aware that it's happening every day?
Every day.
At work, it's happening every day. I have every faith in God, it's happening every day. Every day. And I can recite examples like crazy that we are now aware of how powerful leadership is, and we've taken it out of the context of in business or in entrepreneurship or in economic development. All important. But if it's not fundamentally there in the fiber of our being, this is a pipe dream. It'll never happen. Or if it does, it's a facade and it will crash. So my challenge would be, send an email to Jeff and send him the details, and let's see how many of these examples of leadership we can see.
Right.
Look for the kid in the grocery store, the kid in Walmart. Look for the guy stopping traffic at a crossing to make sure people could get safe. In the winter times, does anybody get out of their car and help a person who's in a walker? Keep McDonald's gift certificates in your car and give them to the homeless person on the street. My wife's champion of that. She drives around Columbus with McDonald's gift certificates. I go, it's not healthy.
But it's something.
But it's something.
Right.
So
Great.
It's a choice.
Right.
If you want to make a difference in our community, which means every person, the life of every person, acknowledge it.
So Bob, we've learned a lot about leadership today, and you've made a very positive impact on this program. And we've called it the Leadership Series, but it simply worked out that way.
Yes.
But now it's much more intentional. It's leadership that really matters.
Yeah, I think that's because those are examples. We learn by example. Great, go get books, read them. I read a lot, but it's the example. It's because it stays with you. You should feel it. When you see that act,
visceral,
yeah, exactly, very visceral.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Hey, thank
You've been
you.
very generous
Thanks.
with everything today. Thank you.
I'm humbled by having the opportunity. Thank you. It was very thoughtful. Great job, Steve.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Steve.
glad he's here too. So thank you.
Okay. Before we go, I'd like to thank members of the Brain Gain Coalition, especially our great sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. So a big thank you goes to Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Moransky Companies, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. Thanks so much for their support. And also, please follow, like, and subscribe to this series on your favorite podcast player. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn, one of my favorite places. You can find me over there at Jeff Leo Herrmann, and send me a message. I will see you next time.
I'm growing up in this life, and to the human that I need to be, I know that I am not alone. I'm brave, I got what it takes.